Hello, good morning and welcome to the Sunday Supplement. Coming up on today's show, it's Sterling's service. Raheem is on the mark yet again as Manchester City power on at the top of the Premier League. And Herrera, he gets Jose Mourinho off the hook in Manchester United's 2-2 draw at Southampton. And Sol Campbell, he's finally into management with Macclesfield. But why did it take him so long to get his chance? Here to explain it all, Shaun Custis is the head of sport at The Sun. Adam Crafton is the sports writer with The Mail. Henry Winter is the chief football writer with The Times. Morning, guys. Good to see you. Glad to see that you got the memo. You got the memo.
What? Oh, deficits. Oh dear. Sorry.
Maybe it's too early for some, I don't know. Thanks for coming anyway, guys. Good to see you as ever. Don't forget to tweet the show at Sunday Sup. The best will appear on screen over the next 90 minutes. OK, let's have a look at some of the papers then. Back page of the Sunday Express this morning, Pep Guardiola. We want to turn the screw. This is Manchester City's message. They are top, sitting pretty, and another win for them yesterday, 3-1 over Bournemouth at the Etihad. It could have been a lot worse for Jose Mourinho, though, yesterday 2-0 down against Southampton. Manchester United fighting back to draw 2-2 at St Mary's, and that's because of this man, Ander Herrera, his rescue act for Manchester United scorer of their second goal yesterday. The hair dryers on the back page of the Sunday Mirror this morning, but also this story. Steve Bates saying Aaron Ramsey on his way to Real Madrid, possibly in January. Of course, it's the North London derby today and everyone's been having their say on it. And Sol Campbell certainly has. The new Macclesfield manager, he says that the title's all over for his former clubs. Arsenal and Tottenham both got no chance of winning the Premier League, according to Sol this morning. Some pretty serious stuff in the Mail on Sunday. Desperation, this is the back page of their paper. Footballers left suicidal over debts from bad financial advice. That story on the back of the Mail on Sunday this morning. But we're going to start with this man, Raheem Sterling. Loves scoring at the moment. He's in great form, possibly one of the best players or the best player in the Premier League, judging by his performances for Manchester City so far this season. Scored again yesterday in their 3-1 victory over Bournemouth. I'll start with you, Henry, because you did play well yesterday, but also you had the privilege of sitting down with Raheem this week to talk about his life, his career and everything that's going well for him. And that's the picture that you painted in the Times yesterday morning. Life is almost perfect for Raheem Sterling at the moment. What kind of mood? He's in great form. But what's taken him into this rich vein? Why is he at the top of his game at the moment?
I think proving people wrong, which all the top sportsmen and women do. I think working with a coach of the quality of Pep Guardiola. I think we saw it in that Amazon documentary, and we saw it again when Guardiola came on the pitch and sort of almost upbraided him for the supposed showboating against Manchester United. What a driven man Guardiola is, what he wants from all his players. And I think Sterling's responded to that because he's driven himself. I mean, he was talking about sort of certain things that have happened in his life. Obviously, what happened to his father, who was murdered in Jamaica when Raheem was 2, coming over to England, making his way here at QPR, then at Liverpool. And he's always had obstacles put in his way. I mean, he talked about Bernardo Silva coming in at Manchester City, then Riyad Mahrez, and he said, listen, as a team player and as someone who wants Manchester City to do well, having those sort of individuals is going to improve the team, strengthen the squad and all that, and it's another challenge and I've got to rise to it. So he keeps... Southgate's talked about this with us in some of our briefings, about how he keeps fighting back. He gets, for me, I think, ridiculous criticisms in certain parts of the media. I think he got criticism over buying his mother a house. I think, one of the other stories on the Mail on Sunday, you talk about the desperation of certain players feeling suicidal over bad financial advice. I think putting, a young player putting his money into bricks and mortar for his family should be applauded, not criticised. There was a story about, he's bought this flash new house. It's actually very understated. He did all the deco himself. It's a nice house. And they talked about, he's got a 3 garages for his fleet of cars. He hasn't got a fleet of cars, and he's actually turned the garage into a gym. If you go to his place, and one of the reasons I wanted to go and see him and talk to him about, actually, it's a shrine to an individual who is dedicated to his family and also to his profession, and his profession is being the best. So he's got a football pitch in the garden. He works on he's actually got mannequins in the garden so he can practice free kicks, he can practice finishings, and the gym is fantastic. So, you know, he's got probably the best training ground in the world at Manchester City, and then when he drives home, he can carry on working on that. He's got a chef in, he's changed his diet because he was feeling lethargic in the first 5-10 minutes of games, and now England and Manchester City are seeing the benefit of that, and he's only 23 and he's only going to get better.
So why is there a different perception? Why is there a different perception of Raheem Sterling? You've just painted a very, very different picture to the guy that perhaps people feel, and the Raheem Sterling that they believe they know.
I mean, maybe that's a question we ask the media as much as Raheem Sterling. I mean, look, he's made 1 or 2 mistakes. He talked about that, and he said that, you know, he at times he hasn't been the most Christian of individuals. But this is also a guy who can quote directly from the Bible, because we were talking about elements of the Bible, and and he did, and so you've got to admire that. He is 23. If he wants to, if he wants to have 2 earrings, so we were talking about Pogba. Why does Pogba deserves all the criticism currently for football basis? But if he wants to do things with his hair, I've got kids. If they want to have earrings, so what? If they want to express themselves like that, it's great. And he made a very pertinent point. He said one of the reasons why England are now being able to express themselves on the pitch as well as off the pitch is that the young players, when they go to St George's Park, the under-17s coach, the under-19s coach, all the coaches, particularly Southgate, they don't judge them on their haircut, whether they turn up with 2 earrings. They want them to express themselves as individuals, be yourself. And that's been one of the biggest problems with English football and with England, is that the players have been inhibited, not expressing themselves, maybe fear of the media, and now they are expressing themselves. And if that involves all 23 players turning up with multiple earrings and then expressing themselves on the pitch, then that's fantastic.
But when he was playing for England at the World Cup particularly, he was getting a little bit of stick for not scoring enough goals, not converting all his chances. He actually accepted that. It's interesting that he didn't rail against that, and there was a lot of pros who were saying, your conversion rate, 2 goals in 38 games or whatever, and he actually said, it's right that, and I do want to convert more, and I do want to convert more for Manchester City. So it's not like he reacts sort of really strongly and badly against it. He takes it on board, it seems to me, if it's from some of the, particularly from the pros. Yeah,
I mean, Ash, you were there for that huge sort of England Super Bowl on the eve of the World Cup when all 23 players came out, and it was really well done by the FA. And I think that was the morning when there'd been a lot of criticism for Raheem Sterling over the gun to 2. And he sat there for an hour, and he was very calm and he was very measured. And you have to applaud that, but don't underestimate his drive. And I think he actually, like a lot of top sportsmen and women do, they use that criticism to drive them on further. But just coming back to your point, completely right about the issues at the World Cup, he clearly prefers 4-3-3. You can see it when that attacking out when he's at Manchester City, when he's got Sane stretching to one side, and he's obviously can cut in from the right. I think we're going to see the best of Raheem Sterling with England in a 4-3-3.
He's certainly playing very well at the moment with England and also his club side Manchester City. Adam, have you noticed any changes at all in the Raheem Sterling who we first saw really, I guess, as a young Liverpool player, but then of course the maturing Raheem Sterling that we see now?
I think he's
what are the significant differences in his game and his attitude, his personality and his lifestyle?
I think he's a far more intelligent person. He's a far more intelligent football player as well. I remember they played Manchester United last year in the derby, and I think everyone at that time was expecting him to be a winger. And he played almost as a false 9 that day, and it completely, it confused Mourinho. It upset Manchester United's game plan on the day. I think that's been the huge impact of Guardiola on him, that he is able to adapt to these different positions, have an impact, not necessarily score goals all the time, but he'll make the runs, he will find the pass. His movement in with the Silvas and Mahrez and Sane is fantastic. But I think also, as you say, his courage. That move he made from Liverpool to Manchester City, I think a lot of people looked at that and thought, there's only one reason why he's doing it at the time. And you look at it now, and maybe actually he looked at that and thought, Guardiola's probably arriving in a couple of years. What could I achieve under this guy? He did have a difficult first year, I think, under Pellegrini. It wasn't the easiest for him. But again, he came back from it, and he takes criticism, but he responds to it in the right way. So I think, what he needs to do now is transfer the goal scoring and the assists more regularly for England. I think he will accept that as well now.
Does he say, I mean, has he really gone into it? I can't remember about why he really felt he had to leave Liverpool. Because as Adam says, you go into Manchester City, you think, well, is he going to start? He hasn't always been starting at Liverpool. I mean, you'd think at Liverpool, whoever the manager is, they'd be playing the type of football which would appeal to him. So why do you think he really had to make that move?
I don't think being left on the bench at Real Madrid by Brendan Rodgers helped.
That was the
and,
one,
and
yeah.
Gerrard as well. I mean, that was maybe he saw the direction. Look, obviously you're going to get more money at Manchester City than at Liverpool, but he doesn't strike me as someone who's... Look, money is the huge motivator. It's the number one motivation in football. You can't escape from that. But clearly, he wants trophies. And look, he's been vindicated. What's the Manchester City chant? Raheem Sterling is top of the league. And he's getting that. And, you know, no one's going to bet against him doing another Premier League. And then he wants to get the Champions League as well. He's very driven. It was quite interesting talking to him about PSG. This is an individual who sits down and watches game. And he was talking things which were way over my head, tactically and technically, on what Neymar was doing. Neymar, you know, I thought was fantastic in bursts and then was doing a bit of rolling around. But Sterling was sort of analysing certain things that he was doing. I was thinking, well, as Adam says, you know, there's a fine football mind there.
The only thing I'd say is that it's easier to play with Manchester City and have a positive influence. What he now needs to do is go into an England team when things might not always be as perfect as they are at Manchester City and make that crucial difference. I think that would elevate him from being, you know, at the moment one of the best players in the Premier League to being one of the best players in the world at that point.
Yeah. Adam, is there a fascination with him? Is there a particular fascination with Raheem Sterling?
Possibly in the front pages, more than the back pages. I think during the World Cup he was only criticised on the back pages for his football. You know, for not scoring goals and missing key chances. And it did reach the point of the World Cup where if you had a key chance for an England player, you probably didn't want it to fall to Raheem because he wasn't going to score it at the World Cup. That was the form he was in at the time. That's unfortunate, but that was the reality of the situation. I don't think there's a unique fascination around him now. Maybe there was. I think things are changing. I think things are getting better. Personally, I didn't see an issue with the gun tattoo, but different people have different views on that. And the fact that so many people were riled up in different directions suggests that maybe there was a fair debate to be had about it because people were, on both sides, had strong opinions. And people are allowed to have those opinions as well.
He's had a difficult... You know, when he came over here, he was going and training at Harlington, which is not the easiest place to find, near Heathrow, where QPR kids were training at the time. And he was getting texts from his family, his sort of mother and his sister, saying, we don't know where we're staying tonight, you know, because they were moving around. You know, it's all very well us sitting around this table who've had quite nice upbringings, you know, to actually understand that mindset. And if he wants to go and, you know, buy his sister a house, buy his mother a house, fantastic, I don't blame him, because actually the whole idea of having a roof over his head, which most people in this country take for granted, he didn't have. He went, it's another hostel tonight. He would get that text. He would take 3 buses back to Harleston and then would receive information there about where he was staying that night because his mother was struggling for accommodation. So, no, I've got huge admiration. I've always liked him. You know what? People talk about his relationship with the media. He's always talked well with us. He's always come out and he's never hidden. He's always come out and talked.
He is one of the few England players who always comes over to say, and it's a small gesture, and it's just polite. But he's one of the few that always makes the effort.
It's also his interest. I think he helped with the Grenfell Fund. When that happened, there was a story this week about him helping a young boy that I think needed a sickle cell. So you know, he's clearly got interest beyond football as well, and he's making great contributions.
He's a very strong character, and why a lot of focus is on him is because he's one of the best players in the country. The focus that was on Beckham, the focus that was on Rooney, the focus that used to be on a Gerrard, on a Lampard, it's the focus because he's so good. And you want to know everything about him because it's why Henry goes and talks to him for hours and writes, 2,800 words.
I think it was an hour, you said, Henry, wasn't it?
Because he is one of he's our best, possibly the best player in the country right now. So you want to know lots about him. It's natural. It's always been that way.
Yeah, I think he is the best player in the country on current form, Adam.
Yeah, David Silva, but yeah, apart from David Silva,
Henry's obviously...
No, David Silva, I agree as well.
It depends who you're interviewing next week.
David Silva.
Look, he's in top form at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in top.
Really
so in Manchester City, is there anything that's going to stop them? Because Guardiola's talking about the momentum, the demand, the desire. He referenced tennis players this morning, saying, you know, Nadal, the great players, Federer, they want more and more and more and more and more. They win, they win, they win. That's the demand of being a top tennis player, and Guardiola's making the same demands of his Manchester City players. Is there any way that this team can get bored?
I don't think so, because he won't let them. What was weird during the week when they drew with Lyon, I was watching the Manchester United game, but you flick over halfway through and there's almost a shock that they're in a contest. And again, at half-time yesterday, when it's 1-1, you just don't expect it to be a contest anymore when Manchester City play, because it's so often a procession. But they seem to be loving still playing for Guardiola. The only question is how long Guardiola will stay there, because the major challenge they have now is that team. It would be a tragedy if they did not win the Champions League. They're too good not to be winning the Champions League, and that's what they have to do. But I think they will eventually break away from Liverpool, and I think Liverpool are the only team that could even catch them now, to be honest.
It's interesting what you say about Leon. I was talking to a reporter, Martin Blackburn, about it, and how it is that have Leon sort of sussed them a little bit. Is there anything they can take from it? He was going on about the strength, the closing down, their ability to take the game to them as well, and not be on the back foot. Maybe other teams can learn from it, because there doesn't seem a real challenger in this country who could really take it to them. But Leon did not seem intimidated by them at all. Yeah. And somebody's got to work out why that is.
Yeah. I think they have one obvious flaw. They don't have an understudy for Fernandinho. Yeah. I think he's such an important player for them. He's such a, he just knits everything together, takes the ball off Stones and Laporte, and then just wins it, and then just links everything. And I just think he's so important. And I don't think they have a high-class understudy. Delph possibly can do that, and Delph, whenever he gets a challenge, he rises to it. Stones could do it, yeah. So apart from those two, yeah.
So we want the fourth understudy. They haven't got one of those.
We're going to talk Liverpool at Everton, because they're going to play the Merseyside derby later. But Liverpool, the obvious challengers, can they keep pace? You don't think they can, do you?
I don't think they can, and I think we'll probably reach a point in March, April, when Liverpool are on track for 90 points, and we'll all be saying, "What's wrong with Liverpool? Liverpool have lost a couple. They're in crisis." There's nothing wrong with Liverpool. It's just that Manchester City are so good. And Klopp is unfortunate to be in a race with the most incredible team. I think
they used to be in a race with this man, Jose Mourinho. Not anymore though. Manchester United 16 points behind Manchester City. We'll talk about United and Mourinho's coming next. Sunday supplement revelations. Shaun's taken up cycling.
Only because I can't run anymore.
If
I ever could, Henry.
Are you a middle-aged man in Lycra, a mammal?
No, not quite. No, not yet.
Have you dug the chopper out of the garage?
Henry asks, then you ask me, what sort of bike is it? What type? I know you spend thousands of pounds on your bikes.
I can get very boring on the subject of cycling, yeah.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Do you want to...
What bike have you got? Oh, you want me to crack on, don't you?
I do.
You got stabilised?
I do. You said I had a chopper.
OK, we'll find a way of monitoring Shaun's progress over the coming weeks.
Oh, come on.
He starts to lose a few pounds.
All right, I'll do
OK, let's
keep
talk,
you up to date.
Let's get the ball back out. Let's talk Manchester United. They drew 2-2 at St Mary's last night. They had to come back from 2 goals down, Adam. What has this week been like for Mourinho? Drew with Crystal Palace. They somehow scraped home against Young Boys in the Champions League with Fellaini's goal. And then yesterday, they drew at Southampton. Where are we with Manchester United?
I think it's the week that confirms that Manchester United needs to change their manager, because I think maybe the theory was that Mourinho's pragmatism maybe gets them over the line for the top 4 over the course of a season. I think it's now clear if you can't beat Crystal Palace at home, you can't beat Southampton away. It's as generous as fixtures as you can get. Young Boys at home in the Champions League was, watching Manchester United now, it's an ordeal. It's such a, you're watching Mourinho on the touchline, you're almost watching it for him more than the players, because the players aren't offering anything, generally. And I feel that they have to make a change now, really. I don't think that the fans are enjoying watching their team. I think yesterday, the first 20 minutes was as bad as anything I've seen from Manchester United since Ferguson retired. And it's a very dispiriting place, I think, at the moment. They were so far adrift of Manchester City when they played a couple of weeks ago. Before that, they seem to have had a bit of a renaissance, but I think since then it's been back to where it was before, and he's just not getting what he needs to get out of those players. Those players have their own questions to answer. Ed Woodward has his questions to answer, from the boardroom to the dugout to the pitch. It's a mess. The club is a mess at the moment.
To be fair to me, is that his mess? You say the club is a mess, but is he solely responsible for every element, every department at Manchester United?
No, of course it's not. And there are major mistakes that have been made over the past 5 years. But is Mourinho someone that could we turn around to him tomorrow and say, are you going to stay here for 10 years, rebuild this club in your image, leave a dynasty? He's not going to do that. You know, he's someone that stays for 3 or 4 years. He's 2.5 years into that. It's going nowhere. So I think at this point, I think Manchester United fans, I think they just want to enjoy watching their team again. Football's meant to be fun.
I think I think there's a worry for slightly if they become car crash TV. You used to turn on to watch Man United to watch entertain, and then there was a sort of middle ground where you think, well, they're a bit dull, but they might win. And now it is car crash telly. You, as Adam says, you turn on to see what disaster is around the corner. That said, I do think Mourinho baiting and berating has become a national sport, and anything he does now, he is slammed for. The bit where he was shaking his head about Rashford, I've seen them all, Guardiola, Klopp, everybody on the touchline, going mad about a chance that's been missed. I think it was perhaps the theatrical way he did it. The throwing of the bottles was funny. I mean, you've seen Wenger kick water bottles and all of that. But he is in that situation where he is picked on for everything, no matter what. And I think that is a bit over the top.
OK.
Well,
in terms of, if you think back to Ferguson, the Ferguson era, have we ever seen Ferguson do something as dramatic as picking up those water bottles, throwing them into the ground?
I've seen him throwing his chewing gum out very aggressively. I have seen him going a bit nuts on the touchline when they miss chances.
Ronaldo, you rated Ronaldo.
But, you know, you remember when, for instance, Guardiola came on the pitch to have a word with Redmond, right, and to tell him how he should be playing and all that. Can you imagine if Mourinho went onto the pitch and said that to an opposition player? Can you imagine what would happen? So he is being judged slightly differently because everybody wants to bash him. That said, there's not much excuse for the way they're playing at the moment, but I think it has gone a bit OTT.
What about the vicious circle, Henry? The vicious circle of the analysts who watch Manchester United, talk about Manchester United, then we're part of this game.
Yeah.
So we're not. I'm not about to try and excuse ourselves. The analysts talk. We go into the press room and we say to Mourinho, "Oh, so and so has just said this about you," and it's a former Manchester United player, a great Manchester United player, and then he is under pressure. He's under enormous pressure to react, and we've put him under that pressure. It's a vicious circle. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think if you look at or you listen to the comments of Rio Ferdinand and Paul Scholes, you know, they're talking from the heart. They care about the team, about the club, and how Mourinho could do with players, not simply of their technical ability, Rio Ferdinand in defence and Paul Scholes in midfield, but also of their character, how he could do with the Gary Neville. You look at that Manchester United dressing room, and OK, so he's spent a lot of money and he's bought some players in, but he also inherited a squad with not enough characters in, with not enough leaders in. You look at the Ferguson's last team, there was Ferdinand in there was Vidic, individuals like that, real leaders. Ashley Young is the captain now. I mean, Ashley Young, wholehearted, but he's not a natural Manchester United captain. So the media obsession, our obsession with Mourinho, always, and look, part of it, he fuels himself. He wants to make himself the story. There's that ego sort of flaw in him like that. But actually, if you really want to understand Manchester United, you have to look beyond Mourinho. You have to look at the squad. You have to look at a player like Paul Pogba, who is being paid a huge amount of money to represent one of the greatest clubs in the world with a huge history. He's actually been given a platform, more and more of a platform by Mourinho in terms of, you know, go and express yourself. I'm trying to tweak this midfield to allow you to express yourself. And Pogba's not doing it. I thought he was embarrassing yesterday, Pogba. For a player of that quality who's won the World Cup, we saw his ability at Juventus. Whatever his relationship with Mourinho is, I don't know whether they get on, whether on Christmas card list, whatever, he still has to go out and represent the club properly. Away games, those Manchester United fans, for me, the best away support in the country in terms of noise, commitment, loyalty. They are always there. They're always saying there's not a peep of protest out to them, whereas actually lesser clubs, lesser support, might have turned on the team and on the manager. I think the fans at Old Trafford as well have been pretty supportive as well, one or two flurries of boos, but actually, by and large, they've stayed behind a team and a group of players who are underperforming, underachieving, and are at times an embarrassment to the shirt. They should be doing better. OK, you can argue about Mourinho, his body language, his man management is poor, but those players have got to actually go out and represent. If you don't get on with your boss, he's your boss, isn't he? So if you don't get on with him, you will still go and write your best piece that you can. OK, it's a simple thing that happens in any workplace, and Manchester Manchester United players are not respecting their employers, the people who pay them, the fans, and that famous shirt. But there are other reasons. Sorry, just to finish this, it's because we're obsessed with Mourinho. It's not simply about Mourinho. It's not simply about underperforming players. It's also about Ed Woodward. Ed Woodward, he is a brilliant financial man. He's fantastic at getting the latest noodle deal in for Manchester United. But really, he's not a director of football. He's got to remember what his role is, which is obviously to generate money for the Glazers. It's not to go and say, actually, I think he's a good centre-half, why don't you back him? He's got to leave that to the experts, to the football people. They do need to get a director of football, someone who can work properly with Mourinho. And then the final element of this, which Adam rightly alluded to, is the Glazers. Where's their leadership? You know, I mean, you look at them, and actually their approach to Manchester United is to take money out of the place. We've seen the debts, we've seen their little payments that they take. We've seen all they're interested in really is the share price and the money that they're going to make eventually when they sell Manchester United, and they'll make a fortune. So actually, maybe one or two of the players around the place think, well, actually, if the owners are only interested in money, maybe we should be. That is not what Manchester United is about. Manchester United is about on the pitch, going for it. Is about pursuing trophies. Manchester United, the culture there now just seems totally commercial, and the Woodward is the symbol of that, having entered the dressing room area.
I feel like the England cricket captain here. Henry, take a blow.
Okay.
Have a breather.
A lot of money has been spent on those players, and some of those players should be performing better. But maybe Jose needs some help from his coaches. Now, you wrote a book with one of his coaches, Michael Carrick. He's taken on Carrick, given him a chance, and I don't see anything coming from him. I don't see anything on the touchline. It was a brave call by Jose to bring Michael Carrick in. Pogba is playing in the sort of position Carrick used to play in, so surely Michael Carrick should be getting a hold of Pogba and saying, can we do this? Can we do that? He was one of widely regarded as one of the best midfield players by a lot of his fellow pros, but he wasn't the most vocal. And I wonder if Jose's not quite getting the help he needs from his coaching staff. You can blame Glazers, Woodward, all of that, but there's got to be something in the coaching as well.
Well, if you look at Mourinho's CV, he's got 2 Champions Leagues on it. He has got titles all over the place. With respect to the young coaches that Mourinho has brought in,
though, Henry.
well, they're there for a reason. How do you know that he doesn't listen?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I thought you might give us some insight.
No, I've not spoken to Michael Carrick for about 6-7 weeks since the book came out.
Finishes the book and he's just like,
finishes the book.
No,
but he's got to make a contribution too. Do you not agree with that?
No, my understanding of Michael Carrick is that there's a very fine coaching mind there. You know, if you know his brother, well, you should do, because he is the
because
North East
he came from the North East. No,
it's a village up there. If you know about football in the North East, Shaun, which you should do, that he is one of the main FA coaching people in the North East. Graham Carrick. Wallsend Boys Club, I'm sure you know that. So anyway, look, there's a fine coaching mind there. But look, but it's not necessarily his role, and I don't have any inside information on this to actually lecture someone who's won 2 Champions League.
But surely he's more than just putting cones out. He's sitting there next to Mourinho, and I don't see anything particularly happening. And I just wonder if you could help us, maybe from 7 weeks ago, what he said he was doing there.
But your focus is normally on Mourinho. So why are you?
No, but everybody needs some help. Everybody needs a sounding board. He used to have Rui Faria as his sounding board, who certainly attracted some publicity of his own. So, but what is it? Chile wants somebody to bounce off and talk about things.
It wasn't that long ago. Henry was sat down with Rui Faria.
Yeah.
Tell us that was 11 weeks ago.
And you were thinking what a miss he was for Mourinho. Do you think he's a miss for Mourinho and that Carrick hasn't been able to fill the void? I'm asking you.
I think the good thing about Carrick is that he's doing his badges. We know what a good footballer he was.
School, this. He's got.
Do you know what? I actually look at that Manchester United team and I wish there were more players of Michael Carrick's commitment, his heart, and also his brains. You look at them sometimes and you think, why?
Well, then he should be getting a hold of Pogba.
But maybe Pogba's unmanageable now.
Well, possibly so. You may well be right.
He has been working with Pogba, but
really?
I completely agree with you. Yeah. Pogba's won a World Cup, and maybe he's fallen in love with himself a little bit too much, and he's forgotten the elements that made Pogba such a formidable force, actually going for seizing games. Yeah. When was the last time Pogba actually seized a game? There were certain moments in the first half, I don't know who watched the game, but certain moments in the first half when he would do something really slick and classy, and you think that's the old Pogba, and then within the same sequence he would lose the ball, and then there'd be a shrug, and his body language would be poor, and there was Herrera running around all over the place. So.
Pogba to me sums up the last few years for Manchester United in that there's an attitude around that place which is if they win 2 games in a row, they think they're the old Manchester United again. And if they lose a game, it's a disaster. And they lurch from crisis to renaissance almost every month.
Juventus skewed the issue a little bit, didn't it? Really?
Yeah, Juventus, and they nearly won at Chelsea, and people are saying, oh, they're playing a bit like the old Manchester United game. I think I've been guilty of it. You'll be at a Manchester United game, you'll write a match report, they've won 3-0, and you say you could close your eyes, and for a minute it felt like the old days again. And Pogba is very typical of that, in that he does one brilliant thing and then lets himself down. There isn't that drive to go and do it again, in the way that Guardiola does it, in the way that Ferguson did it. Juan Mata, I remember speaking to Juan Mata, and he was saying how the spotlight of playing for Manchester United, he'd been at Chelsea, he'd been at Valencia, a big club in Spain, and he said it was incomparable, the pressure of playing for Manchester United, just the scope of coverage with any defeat that they have. And I think that some of those players just can't cope with that. I think it's probably only England that gets the same level of scrutiny and coverage as Manchester United. And even Mourinho is struggling to cope with that now, I think, as well.
Can he turn it around? Is there anything that he can do to save it?
I don't think there is, because he's not.
You think
he's not someone that's going to stay for 10 years. So what's the point of extending this any longer now?
But they've qualified for the knockout stages. So from the Glazers sitting in the Everglades, looking at the money, they'll think, well, actually, we're still in the Champions League. But I take your point. He doesn't get into the top 4, and I don't think he will get into top 4, because there are 4 or 5 better teams in the country. I personally think he'll go next summer. But I just think when he goes, a new manager will come in. But it's also about addressing the squad. It's about addressing Woodward's relationship with the football side of the squad. It's about getting the Glazers to show a little bit more interest in the football side and a little bit more leadership and less focusing on money.
But they're not spending money, are they? Although I did think it was interesting what Mourinho said this week. In the old days, you could just go to Tottenham and take their best players and just sign them. And now clubs don't have to sell anymore. A lot of them, the other 5 challengers don't have to sell anymore. And Man United can't just get out of jail by just going cherry picking the best players from everywhere else.
From Chelsea.
But Chelsea didn't seem to want him anymore, did they?
But why wait till the summer? Why be reactive instead of being proactive? What's the benefit for Manchester United?
Are the big long term, if you want to talk dynasties? I don't think dynasties work in football anymore. Who is there out there? People talk about Zidane. Would Zidane necessarily change it? I mean, it might be a relationship with Pogba. I don't know. I think there'll be movement of leading managers next summer, and I think they should wait until then. I'm not a huge fan of. It won't look good for Woodward. It won't look good for Manchester United if they jettison a manager mid-season.
Yeah, but what does look good for United at the moment? I mean, I sort of take Adam's point, and I'm not advocating get rid of Mourinho necessarily, but this is. It feels like it's not as low as it goes because they've been relegated, but it feels like a pretty low point. So
what are you advocating?
If you change the manager, would it make things any worse?
Would you sack Mourinho now?
I don't think he's going to turn it around, but I can see your point about wait until the summer, because I don't think this season's going to produce anything in particular. I'm probably for looking at it in the summer and seeing who's out there.
Adam's the only one who'd be any good in the boardroom. He's decisive.
Do you know one of the problems?
Oh, maybe,
I think
possibly.
I think one of the problems is we've grown up in this Mourinho era, which we've really enjoyed, and it's been full of great press and really interesting, and we know what he's capable of, and we've seen him win titles, and somehow deep down you think there is still a great manager there, and maybe somehow deep down he might be able to rescue it, because I don't think I'm going to dismiss him as a busted flush. 3, he always gets the Community Shield. He always gets the Community Shield.
The Community Shield as well, OK. That's enough on Mourinho for now. Next up, we're going to talk about the Rainbow Laces campaign this month and what's about the visibility, what it's done for the sport. More on that coming next. Welcome back. With us this morning, Shaun, Custis, Adam Crafton and Henry Winter. Let's just remind you what's in the papers this morning. Back page of the Sunday Express, Pep Guardiola's message to the rest of the Premier League. We want to turn the screw. They did again yesterday. They beat Bournemouth 3-1 at the Etihad. A lot of it down to this man. Oh, not you again. He keeps scoring against Bournemouth. He scored yesterday. He's in top form, Raheem Sterling. Henry did an interview with him in the Times before that game on Saturday morning. We talked about that in part 1. The back page of the Sun this morning, surrender. Sol Campbell, new manager of Macclesfield, he says the title is all over for his former clubs, Arsenal and Spurs. And Jurgen Klopp, he says the rest of the Premier League are too scared, intimidated when they play Manchester City. They're just rolling over for them. Bournemouth didn't yesterday, they were 1-1 before City got going in the second half. Back page of the Mirror, the hairdryer. This is Ander Herrera scoring yesterday, the second goal for Manchester United. They drew at St Mary's. Steve Bates here saying Aaron Ramsey on his way to Real Madrid, possibly in January. The Sunday Times, could have been a lot worse for this man. Could have been a lot worse week as well. They qualified for the Champions League second round to beat Young Boys in the week. They drew yesterday with Southampton. Back of the Mail this morning, the Mail on Sunday. It's desperation. Footballers left suicidal over debts from bad financial advice. And then the Sunday Times this morning, which is where we're going to go now, which is a wraparound of their sports section, but it's the Premier League advertising, Premier League sponsorship. This is everybody's game. This reflects the Rainbow Laces campaign, which I'm sure you'll have all heard about over the last few weeks, and it's a subject we'd like to address now. Adam, in terms of the campaign, is it doing the job? What exactly is it setting out to do, and is it succeeding? Is it achieving its aims?
I think it sets out to create the best possible environment for people to feel comfortable to be themselves. And I think it's succeeding at that to a certain extent. I think it's a good campaign. It's only for a couple of weeks a year. I think there are things that could be improved by football clubs, by people in football. I would like more players to talk about the issue. You know, if you look at the last 2 weeks, how many Premier League players have actually, you know, come out and spoken confidently about this issue and said, because they will all know someone now, I would imagine, who is gay. They all have a cousin or a friend, someone they went to school with, and they should be comfortable enough to be able to relate that experience and just remove there's a fear of even discussing the issue, I feel, amongst a lot of Premier League footballers. And you don't have to be gay to talk about it. All it takes is a leading star to say something like, you know, I have this friend from school who I'm still really close with, he's gay, we're still friends, it's great. It would make a difference. It would make a difference to the wider perception in the public, just also to his dressing room. Tom Kearney of Fulham actually spoke really well about it this week. I think Jonas Lörsel of Huddersfield. I think they're the only two really that I've seen. But there's all manner of things that could be done by Premier League clubs as well. I think what we need to drop is possibly this obsession about who's going to be the footballer to come out, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care if someone doesn't come out for the next 10 or 15 years. I think that the focus has to be on creating the best possible environment. So that means academies, which they're doing better now, better inclusion training, going into schools, helping with schools. Schools are doing it better than anyone now. It's a better place than it's ever been in schools. And also then it's about understanding the different communities in football, because, you know, for all the positives of the Premier League's diversity, actually Britain is quite far ahead in terms of general attitudes towards LGBT people. We have managers from all over the world, different players coming over from all different continents that actually have more backwards attitudes on this issue. There needs to be education for both those managers and players, and I think it should be compulsory, and I think that would help as well. You know, it was interesting you talk about Raheem Sterling in terms of how we always talk about it as a great thing when players are religious, and that's a good thing for them. But there is this uneasy truce between religion and homosexuality, for example, and a lot of players are religious, but that therefore would make it more difficult for them to be comfortable with their sexuality if they were, for example, to be gay. So we have to understand that this goes beyond just football. It's about growing up as, you know, these players are young generally, and it's these different family values, religious values, cultural values. It's not just about football, it's all aspects of society that would have to come together for a player to feel comfortable enough.
But it's interesting your point about the environment. I mean, I'm old enough, Shaun was there as well. You know, we covered the whole Justin Fashanu period of English football, and it was the media wasn't particularly sympathetic. Supporters, some of the chants weren't particularly sympathetic. Manager wasn't sympathetic. And what happened to Justin Fashanu? You know, he took his own life, and you know, maybe there were myriad reasons, but your point is completely right in terms of the environment from the supporters. I think from the media, far more enlightened. I mean, you know, it's the 21st century. an individual sexuality should be, is irrelevant to everyone else. So I think it's fantastic, and it's very powerful that the wraparound that the Premier League did. The rainbow laces, very powerful. What particularly struck me yesterday was the captain's armbands. I thought that was, the
significant.
The significance. I think, but I think your point, what you're getting at, Anne, is actually maybe it is the last debut, as it's called, but actually it's in the dressing room. Actually, as you say, you've got to educate some managers and some players. I think the majority of them would be completely accepting as everyone.
You say there's an obsession with, say, the first player to come out, but it strikes me it does help slightly, because rugby seems to have no problem discussing the subject because of Gareth Thomas and what a sort of advocate he has been of gay rights, if you like. And it seems to me it's made the whole sport feel eeasier discussing it. And football doesn't have that now. So
of course, in an ideal world, someone comes out tomorrow, it makes things far easier for everyone else. What about that person? And that's the biggest thing. If you're, take an example, if you're an 18-year-old footballer, all of a sudden you're thrown in at Manchester United, you've just scored a goal, nobody knew who you were yesterday. At 18, I'm gay. At 18, I didn't know I was gay. So, for that footballer, when he's starting his professional career, he's just another player. There'd probably be a story in a tabloid paper about some girl that he's speaking to. So therefore, all the presumptions in the dressing room are, this, he'll come on a night out with us. We'll go after the girls. So straight away, you're having to challenge what everyone expects of you, and it may not be till he's 21, 22, 23 later that he actually realises in himself, accepts himself. Then he's got to talk to his family. That can be difficult for all manner of reasons. And then you've got to take the step ahead of that of being the first and all the responsibility that comes with that. It's a massive thing for that person. And I toast it for everyone else, it would be brilliant. But for that person, it's the hardest thing.
I read the Robbie Rogers story, and he was always sort of wrestling with whether he could do that when he was at, I think it was at Leeds, and then when he got the MLS, he felt a little more easy to discuss it. But he retired. But he retired. Hitzelsberger had retired. Yeah. So they don't. Footballers still don't feel they can do it while they're playing.
And there's also an element of, if you're not I think if it was per se a Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, everyone would still be talking about his football. If it was a run-of-the-mill player, there's a danger they become the gay footballer, and not everyone wants to be known for that as well.
But I take the
people don't refer to you. You said that you're gay. People don't refer to you as the gay football writer today. Adam, the gay football writer today.
Some people
I don't. But no, I don't think anyone.
Some people might, I said, but I don't think they do. But
okay, if you were, would it offend you? That's Adam. He's the gay one.
Not really. Take it as a compliment. But it's different in football in that we're fortunate in our industry that there's several different there's now a group of LGBT sports journalists doing really good work, and there was great reference points when I was coming into the industry that I could talk to and feel comfortable with it. For this guy, it would be very difficult. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from coming out. I'm just trying to help people understand why, for that person, there may be an apprehension.
Does it have to be a group then, do you think? Almost?
Maybe, but then the issue is the trust in the organisations. Last year, Greg Clark at the FA said during that address in the House of Commons, was talking about how a gay footballer had written to him the week before and how they were going to meet up. That footballer had written to him in trust and confidence. 4 days later in the House of Commons, he's revealing that conversation because he appeared at that moment to be so desperate to be the FA chairman that gets the picture with the gay football.
I tell you what, it's not an issue in women's football, is it? I mean, okay, so differences and all that, but
that plays into different stereotypes about the lesbian community as well.
What stereotypes?
Historically.
Okay.
Historically. That's maybe why it's been easier, but it's still difficult.
Right.
You see?
Yeah, I just think when one individual, or as you say, a group of individuals come out, then within a month, everyone will be going, well...
I agree.
Let's get on with it. Let's judge them as they should be judged, as footballers.
Because the best response is, I don't care.
It's the 21st century. It's crazy we're still having this debate.
Yeah. Has the media done enough, Shaun, do you think, in terms of...
I've met the Rainbow Laces, the people who work behind it, and they go with this campaign every year. We did big pull-outs on it last year. I see you're referring to the broadsheet doing it this year. But I do think they've worked very hard to try and get the message across. I take Adam's point that it needs a bit more support from the players. I do think, though, players have started to talk about it. I may be wrong, but it feels like... referees certainly have discussed it.
But the actual intrusion in somebody's personal life in interviews, Shaun, I think is unusual. We wouldn't normally ask a player about, for example, about his girlfriend.
No, we wouldn't.
In an interview, would you?
No,
unless
ordinarily not in the
no.
sports section. You probably wouldn't know.
I think you would only talk about someone's personal life if they bring it to the table and say,
yeah, sure.
or if they bring it up in conversation that they want to talk about.
That's why I think.
So we wouldn't normally ask. These aren't questions we would normally ask football reporters.
I think it would be wrong for us actually to start going around asking everyone, "What's your view on this? Why aren't you talking about this?" I think where the clubs can be better, clubs have a huge amount of different sponsors who they push their players to talk about as causes every week. Arsenal are running around with Visit Rwanda on their shirt every week. So I think that there are initiatives that clubs could do on their social media channels, on their own websites, where they could just do it in a more relaxed environment. It doesn't need to be in an interview in newspapers talking about that. But I think there are things that the clubs could do, and I think the clubs could be stronger in encouraging people to be allies to the community.
It'd be interesting. I mean, heading towards Qatar. And their view, their homophobic approach to life, to supporters and players out there, I think. But just the general point of the media, the only perspective I can bring into this, the media is far more enlightened now than
I can say
15 years ago.
Yeah, I've never had one issue with anyone working in the media at all, towards me, at all. It's been fantastic from that point of view.
The Stonewall played at Wembley, didn't they, on
Friday night?
Yeah, on Friday night. It's about 1,100 people, I think, were in attendance. In terms of gravitas, in terms of perception, how would that help? How would that fixture, playing at Wembley at the National Stadium, how and why did that help?
Maybe it helps people feel that they belong in the National Stadium. I have to admit, personally, it wasn't something that, there are sort of LGBT football teams around the country. I'm of the view that if I was playing in a football team, that I would like to be in an everyday team. But there are some people that have clearly been in those teams at different points, like in dressing rooms, and not felt that it's safe for them, and it's very sad. And I think there's also probably, if you're on the terraces, if I had a boyfriend, would I go with my boyfriend if a team scored a goal? Would I kiss them? I'm not sure. Probably not, to be honest, in the way that if you're there with your wife, maybe you do in that moment. So I think there's still things to improve, but I think in terms of media, public perception, things are better than ever. And it's just we just have to be patient. I think
there'll be pockets of resistance from fans, but I think you would be surprised about how supportive people are.
I take your point about Stonewall. They have highlighted the issues, though, so it's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it? I understand why you wouldn't want a totally gay football team, but they have definitely highlighted some of the problems.
Did you ever play against them? I remember playing against Stonewall when they were Sunday League team. We used to play them in South London.
Were they a good side?
Yeah, very good side. Yeah.
I don't know. Can't remember.
Yeah.
OK, thanks, guys. Let's move on. We're going to talk Sol Campbell next. He's got his first job. It's with Macclesfield. It's a tough one. They're bottom of League Two. More on that coming next. Welcome back. Goals on Sunday follows us here on the Sunday Supplement. They've got one of my personal favourites on the sofa this morning. Here's Ben to tell you all about it.
Morning, Neil. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Busy show for us, Cam, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. Lots to talk about. Big day for the VAR fans yesterday because a lot of refereeing decisions were wrong.
Yeah, we'll be discussing those. And Sir Les Ferdinand will be joining us on the sofa as well. And we're bright and early, much like you guys. We're kicking off at 9:30.
Oh, I love Les Ferdinand. You must love Les Ferdinand.
Yeah, everybody said it couldn't work, Ferdinand and Shearer together. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Towering headers. Nobody could hang in the air like Les Ferdinand. I've never seen another striker do it the way he could do it.
Yeah, top player. Started his career, of course, at Hayes way back in the day, didn't he? You've got to know things like that. Hayes, QPR. Come on, Shaun, know your football.
Yeah, West London.
You know your football. He only knows the North West. He the hotbed of North West.
I don't personally remember him. I personally don't remember him.
He was. OK, I'm absolutely fascinated by this subject. A lot of people have written about it this week, which is Sol Campbell. Makes it tricky for himself, but it should not have been this hard to get his first job in management. Here's the new Macclesfield manager, Oliver Holt, in the Mail on Sunday this morning. His column, he says, yeah, sure, Sol Campbell can be a bit eccentric, but it's funny how that never got mentioned when it comes to white managers who are a little bit different as well. Why did it take so long? The first thing that struck me as soon as he was appointed was the point that Paul Ince made as well, which was, well, as soon as Frank Lampard said he wanted to be a manager, Derby County. As soon as Steven Gerrard said, well, I want to be a manager, I've decided to be a manager, Glasgow Rangers. Sol Campbell, 73 caps for England, Macclesfield. Why?
I think there were times, and we've all done interviews with Sol Campbell, where it was not clear what direction he wanted to go in. He was sort of toying with acting in Los Angeles at one point, and I think he himself was wondering what he wanted to do. But he says he's put the groundwork in. I think it's interesting, he got criticised for mentioning 73 caps. You know, I'm a world-class player, so I'm coming to Macclesfield, so it's a nice balance. But I think he possibly did have to remind people of what he'd done in the game, because, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a really good player, and he was a really good player, and Macclesfield may well be lucky to have him, but there's no doubt he is a quirky character. But he is a quirky character. Everybody would accept that. But he's a very interesting character to talk to. He's never dull, is it, when you're talking to Sol Campbell? It's always... And he listens to the question and he comes back with an answer which, whoa, that's, you know, he's fascinating. And if Macclesfield players buy into it, which, let's be honest, they should do, you may end up with one of the... It's possible you could end up with one of the great managers. It's possible. Equally, they may turn against it and find it's just way above their heads.
But actually, Ash, your point, you know, the question that you were posing is effectively, are some boardrooms racist? And I think that's probably quite right. I think you talk to, I mean, you know, the late great Cyril Regis was always talking about the glass ceiling for black managers, and the more that can break through that glass ceiling, and I think fantastic for Macclesfield. And everyone was going to wish Sol Campbell all the best. Because actually, there's a general point here. The more good young English managers, as well as black managers, the better it's going to be long-term for development of this country, the better it's going to be long-term for the England national team to have more options when Southgate stands down. And I think it's brilliant. And this wealth of experience. I mean, you know, we were fortunate. You know, we went to all those 6 tournaments with Sol Campbell. Fascinating to talk to him. And he was one of the few players who would actually escape the England bubble, and you would be in some far-flung place in sort of Lithuania or Eastern Europe or whatever, and Sol Campbell would be having a sort of coffee in the town square and experience it. So he's a very interesting character, and I really hope it works out for him. But coming back to the point about the deck of cards that Gerrard and Lampard built, I mean, Lampard goes into Derby County and everyone wants Frank to do well, but he's got some good players there. He's allowed to bring, and this is a very difficult job that Sol Campbell's got. And I hope if there is a bad run of results and some bad performances, people don't turn against him too soon, and he doesn't get another chance later on down the road. Because you know, I can't remember whether we did his pro-licensed media trainer. I don't think we did, but there's such an intelligent football mind in there, and it's brilliant that it's given a chance. But he's got to be given a chance and then another chance.
Yeah. But do you not agree that there has been a perception of his quirkiness may well also put some clubs off? The fact he is known as a bit of a different type of character. But
if he's got different interests, if he's got the fact that
I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that I think is why some people have been put off. I'm not saying it's right. I just think they think, well, he's not your normal stereotypical type of manager.
Yeah. But sorry, Adam, interrupting you. But isn't that one of what we celebrate in English football, in the Premier League? Obviously, at top end of the scale. Actually, the sort of diversity, diverse range of managers from Argentina. You know, so Bielsa, we've got Guardiola, and then you've got Neil Warnock. You know, football is a broad church, and you've got Mourinho as well.
They don't like him being a quirky character, do they?
So actually, why shouldn't we have a range of individuals?
Agreed.
Well, we have Paolo Di Canio, and if you can have Paolo Di Canio, then you can have anyone, surely.
In terms of
managing English football.
Yeah, because of his fascist past.
Well, no, but also just of how eccentric he is as a character in general. I don't think that should discount anyone from getting a job. I think there have been moments in these different job interviews, things have come out from them where there are anecdotes that have come out where you do look at that and think, A, he's not done his research, and B, is he best placed to manage a group of people? And I think those are fair questions that boardrooms would consider. However, for someone of that standing in the game as a player, he should have received an opportunity by now. And I think the job he's got, what maybe people don't realise, is how difficult that Macclesfield job is. They should never have gone up, actually, from the National League last year. They had the smallest budget, I think, in the division, and players weren't paid wages at one point in the season. If he keeps them up this season, it would be an extraordinary job. So that's why it's so important, as you said, Henry, that he gets a job after this one as well.
But he's always been, it strikes me, fighting for recognition for how good he was, and I've never quite understood that, because we loved him playing for England, didn't we? And
it was partly the Tottenham-Arsenal change that
yeah, but in England terms, I always felt really robbed by the 2 goals that were disallowed for him in major tournaments, that he deserved to be the hero. He was a towering figure playing for England, and I think he's aware that he feels hard done by that he's always had to fight for recognition. When he came out and said what he said this week, I sort of understood it, to remind people, I was a major
Shaun,
player.
I have to say, if you ask for the best central defenders that we've seen in our careers, then Campbell, Ferdinand, Terry, they're just automatic, and Ledley. They are the four. They are the 4 players that I always. That's my reflex action. They are the 4 names.
Yeah. Right.
But that's in terms of the recognition. Well, in terms of what do you want me to say? Terry's there, Ferdinand's there,
but
Ledley,
sort of
King.
not,
what more do you want me to say?
Not revered in the same way, as you say, partly the Arsenal-Tottenham thing, not revered in the same way maybe as a Ferdinand is, and I think he feels that a little bit put out by that.
There's still 1 or 2 disgusting chants that you still hear about Sol Campbell.
True, yeah, okay.
And you just think, first, grow up and appreciate and respect just someone who on 73 occasions gave everything for his country.
And now he's got this job. There is so much interest in Newcastle under-23s versus Macclesfield on Tuesday night in the Checkatrade Trophy. You can't believe it. I mean, people are really going to be interested in that night. Because we are intrigued to see how
it's
well
all about the
Sol Campbell
Checkatrade,
does.
isn't it? Yeah, forget the Premier League.
I bet they're loving it, Checkatrade,
yeah.
this one. But it will be so intriguing to see how Campbell does. I think it's a really interesting appointment. It'll certainly put Macclesfield on the map for a while.
Yeah, it certainly will.
I mean, it obviously is on the map, Henry.
I actually think he's one of the most interesting people I've met in life, in any walk of life, because you can go and talk to him about... I bumped into him in a ski resort once.
Yeah, well, you would.
And we were just
sort of talking about
nice, Cloisters is
lovely. Verbiage. We had just a really good.
We stayed in the same hotel as well.
We stood for just half an hour, just sort of talking about life and kids, and he's interested in design, and obviously talk about football, because I want to talk about what's the North London derby like and all that. And he's just fascinating on a range of subjects, and he's one of those people who we should absolutely celebrate as an individual as well as being a fantastic player.
He's not biting today, is he?
He's not. It's really disappointing. What about your posh ski resorts that you go to?
By the way, how's your Christmas tree?
Christmas trees.
The man who bought an artificial Christmas tree for eco reasons, because he thought it would 7 years ago, because he thought it would last and last and last.
We've just replaced it.
And he's just replaced it.
Well, after you got 7 years.
You won't be on for Christmas. You'll be off to Verbier or whatever, won't you?
They'll be covering matches, actually.
Oh, right.
We need to talk a bit of North London derby. It is Arsenal against Tottenham this afternoon at the Emirates. I'm there. Henry,
definitely.
Yeah, you're off to Chelsea, I know, Adam. But Sol's been talking this morning, back page of the Sun with Dan King, and says, forget it, Arsenal, Tottenham, no chance of winning the title. What is today's North London derby about?
Bragging rights, as ever. I think it will give a good indication of where the two teams are going. I think Tottenham have had a fantastic week so far, but we've seen them have these weeks before where it looks like they're on the brink of doing it and then they come shattering back down to earth.
So it feels like it just feels like a free hit today for them. They've had they've had such an exceptional week.
Yeah, but do you not think
the manner of the destruction against Chelsea last weekend, getting over the line against Inter Milan, that's 2 of the 3 massive fixtures they've got this week. Well, whatever happens against Arsenal, they've still had a brilliant week.
Sorry, so North London derby is not a free hit. Yeah. Don't tell Spurs fans that. Don't tell Arsenal fans that. They would have taken
it at the start of the week.
It's
Henry.
bragging, but they would have taken the 2 wins.
2 wins and a defeat at Arsenal at the start of the week?
Yeah, well, look, it's kept the Champions League alive. Chelsea obviously is important. There's an edge between them. But absolutely, the North London derby for Spurs fans, for Arsenal fans, is absolutely huge. You're completely right about the bragging rights, but it's also about more than bragging rights. It's also about direction of travel. Arsenal, rightly under Emery, been getting a lot of praise. Pochettino, rightly, Spurs under Pochettino, rightly been getting a lot of praise. The football that they've been playing under so slightly difficult resources given the stadium view. So there's so much for us.
Doesn't this feel like the first time in a long time that they've come together on the pitch? You think, not really sure which way this one's going to go.
Do you not think it's a big thing as well that early in the season they beat Man United away 3-0, then they went to Watford and lost. Last week they turned Chelsea over. It would be such a big statement for them to go to Arsenal today and do 2 in a row on the back of the Champions League result as well. That would be the statement that says, you know, actually Tottenham may be the closest. Well, I think they probably will be anyway, but they could keep up with Liverpool this season.
Yeah, OK, big game at the Emirates.
Big
it's
game.
all about the big game. Oh, sorry. It's not a free hit for Tottenham whatsoever. They've got to go to the Emirates and win.
You against Brighton.
Yeah. Oh, huge game. That's coming up as well next week as well, by the way. OK, what's coming up a bit later? It's the Merseyside derby. It's Liverpool against Everton. More on that game. It's coming next. It's the first time I've ever heard Henry Winter say, no comment.
No comment.
No comment. Comment on the...
Shaun's dress sense, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Smart enough.
Yeah, smart.
Let's get some comment, though, on the Merseyside derby. I know. Which one's... He's got croissant all over his jumper as well. Look, let's take him off camera while he takes the croissant off his jumper and talk Merseyside derby. Arsenal Tottenham is massive.
Yeah, it's not a free hit.
No, it's not a free hit. So what is this at Anfield this afternoon?
Well, it's huge as well, and particularly, I mean, it's been, 19 years since Everton won there. You know, you think of the games down the years, you think of Gerrard throwing himself into tackle, you think of Ian Rush, I think, scored 4 goals once. It's just one of those iconic fixtures, which is all about local bragging rights, national significance, international. There'll be people watching from all over the world listening in. It's huge, and what's interesting is, look, Klopp is a fantastic coach, and the way he's got that Liverpool team playing is terrific. OK, they need a little bit more of a bond and a bit more maybe dynamism and energy in midfield, but he's addressed the problems at the back. The front 3 will click again because there's so much talent there. But Everton look a more organised team. There's more unity. You can see the connections. They've got more of an identity under Marco Silva. So they'll prove a test. Look, Liverpool will be favourites for many reasons. But there's a fighting spirit in this Everton team now. There's a bit more of a cutting edge. There's a bit more strength in depth. There's more organisation, more discipline, and they'll fight.
Haven't solved their striker problem properly yet, though, have they? I think that's the thing that's really... getting to them, really, because I think if they feel if they could solve that bit, they'd have nearly the complete squad. I also think Klopp has got really offended about those questions about his midfield this week, hasn't he? Almost like we were going along saying Liverpool, they're Premiership challenges, they're looking good, and then the midfield gets ripped apart for not being dynamic enough, and suddenly it's been decided that actually Liverpool aren't really contenders because they don't have anybody to make it happen. I don't really understand what changed in the middle of the week from the start of the season that's made everybody suddenly doubt them. Again, you know, you have a bit
I think
of a
it was
dodgy
possibly Verratti's performance. OK, he could have got sent off. He probably should have got sent off for that tackle on Gomez. But I just think when you just looked at his performance, that energy, OK, there's not the goal threat, but maybe Liverpool need a bit of that. But look, they've got some good... I think Wijnaldum's been having a good season. But it's the second half of the season where I think you'll see Liverpool kick on. Because they've got so many good
But what about that
players
midfield thing that's been talked about? What has to happen in there to make it more dynamic?
They need one of Keita or Fabinho to come to the
Exactly.
party.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. They've bought 2 players, and neither of them are doing what Coutinho was doing for them. And probably no one's really mentioned Coutinho's name since he left Liverpool because of how brilliant.
Except this week.
except this until this week. And it is in those biggest games. You know, when you look at when they played Man City against Napoli again in a few weeks' time, PSG, maybe. It is just that little sprinkling of magic, but Keita, Fabinho, they're meant to be those players.
But where is... I think it's trying to work out where is Fabinho supposed to play?
Well, he also doesn't seem entirely sold on Henderson this season. No. He's not played a couple of big games as well. So it'll be interesting. He needs to get it right because Milner's fantastic in terms of what he brings, Wijnaldum the same, but they need someone special to bring it to life.
I love that leadership and passion that Henderson brings. I love his sort of... He gets Liverpool. I think he's underrated, technically. I don't think you play at the top and you have managers like Southgate, like Klopp, rating him without having a sort of technical... he's got that little pass around the corner. He can sort of thread those passes through. I agree with you. I think they were expecting more from Case. Obviously, Fabinho took a bit of time. There were sort of injuries and all that. He's got quite a nice start, Fabinho, when he gets in there with those sort of long legs and he's sort of those ranging runs that he can make. But absolutely, and I think Shaun, you're right. I think Klopp maybe was a bit sensitive because he realised that it is slightly an Achilles heel at the moment, getting that midfield flying again. But look, if they beat Napoli and have one of those great sort of Olympiacos, Etienne type Anfield nights, then we'll flip again and we'll say how wonderful they are.
Firmino as well needs to get back to what he was doing last year because he sets the tone, and when he plays well, the whole team play well.
Yeah. What about Everton as well and the job that Silva's done? How do you assess that so far after 13 games? They'll be on to 14 this afternoon.
It's a sort of 6.5, 7 out of 10, I think, isn't it? They've not had a statement result yet. This would be it, wouldn't it? I think he's improving them. They've obviously signed... There's been a huge turnover of players over the last couple of years, and I think if you told most... if you said to most sort of lay football fans, can you name Everton's team straight away, you're still sort of coming to terms with this new Everton team, and I think they're a bit more disciplined than his Watford team were sort of this time last year. They're not as free-flowing, but maybe that's just him working with what he's got. But they're a younger side now. There's good sides, but they probably need that one big result to really give them a belief to go forward.
Yeah.
Liverpool have got to get past Pickford. I mean, he's just... You could just know what Pickford will be like for an occasion like this. Well, any match. He's up for any match. But you can just see him throwing himself around.
Linked with
frustrating.
Linked with a move to Manchester United this morning, Henry, if...
Pickford.
It's not the first time
if Henry,
that's been suggested.
Yeah, if David De Gea leaves, is he good enough?
Yes,
for Manchester United.
Absolutely. You saw it in the World Cup. And Pickford, because what you need at Manchester United, you need a strong character to go there, as well as having the technical abilities and the distribution which Pickford's got. I mean, with Rashford's pace up front and Pickford's, delivery,
launching balls up to him. What you're saying?
Well, you just, I mean, that ball, that that sidewinder that he can play, that volley his half volley is fantastic. He's got the character, but sorry, well, Is he? He's not leaving Everton. I don't think he's that. He doesn't jump around in terms of clubs.
He's only young though.
Yeah,
but he's only young, so I'm sure he would want to go to Manchester United.
But De Gea, they trigger the contract for another year. So if De Gea stays another year, Pickford's too good to sit on the bench. So why go?
I think it's what Adam referred to about the scrutiny on Man United is bigger than anywhere that you get, and I think Pickford certainly is the sort of character who could handle it. You saw that from the World Cup. So he wouldn't be daunted like some people are daunted by moves to Man United. But it'd be a particularly difficult time to go to Man United as well. It's not going in when they're really top class. But I think he's definitely got the character.
And be as good as David De Gea.
Yeah.
You're just a quick word because you're off to Chelsea Fulham today. So Ranieri returns with his latest club. What do we think for Ranieri's return? A brilliant start to his career as the Fulham manager last weekend.
I think they'll have a bit tough today. I think Chelsea are almost the more interesting part of it today in terms of how they respond. Kante, I'm not sure where that's going with Sarri, and Conte's just signed a new 5-year contract, huge contract, and he's not using him where he should be using them, and that's not going to change because he wants Jorginho in that system.
Jorginho's only had one bad game before we all get carried away.
And that was last weekend, of course, at Wembley Stadium. OK, guys, unfortunately, we've run out of time today, but thanks very much for your company this morning. Shaun, Custis, Adam Crafton and Henry. I don't know why you look at me like that. OK, lots of football coming your way. You don't need to move today. It's all happening. It's all on Sky, of course. Where else? First up, it's Chelsea against Fulham, Arsenal against Tottenham later. Henry's there, I'm there. And then Liverpool against Everton later on from Anfield. OK, download the Sky Sports app. You can watch the in-game goals and the highlights on your mobile phone. Ben and Cammy are next with Goals on Sunday. My favourite. Les Ferdinand will join them very soon on the Goals on Sunday. So that's next up with Ben and Cammy. OK, don't forget you can catch up with the show. It's on the podcast, of course. It's also on demand. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for all your tweets this morning. We read them all. We're back next week, back at 9:30. We'll see you then. Enjoy your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.